Craig Wessels here from my Yank on the Footy, and I decided rather than trying to record a regular episode as I would normally do, I was planning on doing a short episode this evening as we're running into the last few hours of the trade deadline, and I wanted to touch on a couple of items as the trade deadline is getting ready to wrap up here, as we still have a number of big names that are out there that are waiting to find out whether or not they're going to have new homes, waiting to find out whether or not they're going to be staying where they were the previous year. And quite frankly, we don't know exactly where some of these people are going to be going. So there's a couple, trades that have occurred, some big names that have gone on the move, but there are still some big names out there that are waiting to find out whether or not they're going to be heading out and doing their own thing. So looking back at some of the trades that have occurred in the last 24 hours or so, we've seen a few things that have happened. One, Alir has headed from Sydney to Port, and Port's giving up a second-round pick next year for him. And I that was a name that I had not heard mentioned at all as possibly moving on to another club, which bit of a surprise there. A lot of speed with that young man. He's a great alternative ruckman, and I think he's going to do a great job in the center of the defensive structure for the Power next year. So I think that was a good get for them. I saw some things, or I read some things earlier today that said that there might have been some issues in Sydney with regards to his work ethic and that sort of thing, that maybe some of the people involved in the player structure had helped to kind of encourage him to move on. I don't know if that's the case or not, but there were some things that alluded to that. So we'll have to see, but I think he was a good pickup, and it was a shocking pickup, quite frankly, for Port. I didn't see that one coming at all. And of course, we know that Adam Saad finally is leaving the hangar and finding his way to Carlton, and the swap of, I believe, 5 picks there, along with this deal, maybe 4 picks actually, where Essendon's going to be picking up pick 8 and I believe a 5th round pick also. And then also sending out, I think, a 2nd and a 3rd round pick along with Adam Saad on the way to Carlton. And Adam Saad, if you look at him as being if you were to compare him to a basketball player, he's kind of like a lockdown defender, or a football player. If you follow Gridiron, the NFL, a cornerback who's covering the wide receivers, he's a little bit like a lockdown cornerback, like Darrelle Revis used to be, or Mike Haynes going back years ago when he played with the Patriots and the Raiders. Lester Hayes with the Raiders 30 years ago as well. Yeah, just a guy who did not let his opponent get the ball. And that's something that Adam Saad has done extraordinarily well. And I was listening to a podcast on the way home from school today where they were talking about how he had given up 1 goal or nothing to a number of his opponents that he was matched up with during the course of the last couple of seasons. So, a big deal to get him in Carlton. Carlton has really done an awful lot to improve their standing in the going into the 2021 season. It'll remain to be seen what happens there. If they add anybody else. Kurnow is having knee surgery again. That's, if I'm not mistaken, I read that was his 7th knee surgery that he was having in such a long time of trying to recover. And in a relatively short career, he's been dealing with all these injuries. Is he somebody who we're never going to see the true potential? Well, we might see the potential, but we may never actually see it on the grounds. And looking at the events taking place with regards to the Cats, that is a kind of a mixed bag of things for me there. And I don't know how I feel about it, because I'm a little bummed out, and I'll get to that part in a minute. But they've made a couple of deals. They sent Lockie Fogarty out. They picked up picks 30 and 51 from the Blues, and then turn around and use that pick 30 on Sean Higgins, brought in another quality midfielder, again, arguably on the other side of 30. But I saw somebody post in one of the Facebook groups today that, the Cats, they're replacing a 36-year-old and a 36 and a 35-year-old with a 32 and a 31-year-old. So they are actually getting younger, relatively speaking. They also, they made a deal that it was inevitable. We knew it was coming. I knew it was coming, but it doesn't make it any less painful. Is not the right word to use, but any less depressing maybe might be the right word to use, because for those of you who have listened to the podcast from the beginning, I became a Cat supporter ultimately. And I don't want to say I settled on becoming a Cat supporter. I made the decision to jump on board as a Cat supporter because of really one player. And that one player was Nakia Cockatoo. And when I became a fan in the 2017 season, 2018 season, when I solidified my desire to be a Cat supporter, he played with such reckless abandon and was just, to me, was such just a dynamic force on the field and on the grounds. And for somebody who was brand new to the game, didn't know a lot about the game, I was mesmerized by watching him play. He reminded me a lot of some of the players that you would see playing in the NFL in terms of his speed and power and that type of thing. And his, I guess you could say, almost bravado. He almost, looked like he had an air of confidence about him. So he's on his way to Brisbane. We knew that was coming. Doesn't make it any less sad. They're bringing back a 2021 third-round draft pick to replace him, which, you think about it, he was picked 10, I believe, back in 2016, 2015. So he's been around for a while. He still is only 23 years old. And I know that's getting up there, halfway through a career in many instances for players, or a third of the way through the career for players who play a long time. He's been broken down. He's struggled to stay healthy, but doggone it, it sure looked like he was getting healthy this year. And I'm disappointed to see him go, but it makes sense that he did want to go to get a fresh start. He was struggling to get, time in the midfield again. It's due to injury. But if you look at the list of players that the Cats have that are playing in the midfield, where is the opportunity going to be for him? Now, he might have forced, somebody else off of the grounds. He might have forced a Brad Close or a Sam Simpson. Is it Sam Simpson? I think it is Sam. Off the grounds, that type of thing. But it's it really is, just like I said, a little sad to see him go. And I wish him the best of luck. I think he's going to be a dynamic player for Brisbane. They're going to be fast. You put, if he's healthy, you put him out there, running alongside Charlie Cameron. Heck, you've probably got a half of a 4x400 relay team in not necessarily the Olympics, but in some type of a setting. A couple of very fast guys there. So the Cats, they, of course, they're trying to figure out what the heck is going to be going on in the next 8 to 10 hours here, because they still have one deal in the works, and we'll see if it happens. This is an instance here where you got two guys who are kind of facing off with one another. Have the Giants and the Cats become the Footy version of the Soviet Union and the United States in terms of the Cold War? Who's going to fire the first shot? Is it going to happen? I don't friggin' know if it's going to happen or not. They've offered picks 13 and 15. Now, I believe they got back more than that in the deal for Tim Kelly, but Tim Kelly was 4 years younger. This is a guy who wanted to go home as well, and I don't know if this deal is going to get done. I think they were shocked actually when GWS decided to match their offer, and Mr. Wells might just go ahead and decide to just drop him right back in their lap and say, there you go, you hang on to him. And if he decides not to stay there, that puts him right back in the draft again. And that way, then the Cats have ammunition in their draft capital with 13, 15, and 20. And I think they still have 51 left as well because they've traded out a few picks. They've got the ability to go back up and pick him up in the national draft if he ends up staying with GWS, because GWS may decide, ultimately we don't want to pay him. Now, of course, somebody else could come along and draft him. Some other Victorian club could come along and draft him. Essendon could take that pick 8 and draft him. Now, doesn't say he has to sign a lengthy contract. I don't believe he's obligated to sign for an extensive period of time once he's reached this point in his career. I'm not sure on that. You can let me know. You can shoot me a comment and say, hey, yeah, that's he'd only have to be there for a year if he wanted to be. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this, because this is really the first trade period where I have tried to focus and pay attention as much as I can to what's absolutely going on. There's been a lot of player movement. There've been a lot of people moving in and out. I don't know if Jeremy Cameron gets moved. Cats may just walk away. They might decide, you know what? We've added Isaac Smith. We've added Sean Higgins. Maybe we can find another side deal somewhere else and pick up another player that's going to help us. Maybe we can use one of these assets and, pry another ruck away from somebody, maybe another defender away from somebody to help bring about, a stronger list going in, and still leaving them some capital to fill in the bottom part of their list. And as I was getting ready to do this live stream tonight, and again, you'll have to let me know how this turns out and how this sounds. I'm not doing all the bells and whistles of my intro music and that type of thing. I'm just looking at the Podbean Live app, and there are a number of things here that that you can do where you can if I say something that is really, really dumb, I can go ahead and include, they can boo me if they want to. Or hey, if I'm brilliant, which let's be honest, I don't know if that's going to happen. You might hear that, but I'm not gonna fill around with those things too much, because it's not that important or anything of that nature there. But getting back to the Cats, I don't know if they're going to make this move. Their list is older. They've got arguably they've got 9 guys right now who are on the north side of 30 who are probably in their best 22, and maybe it's only 8 because Jack Stephen is still on the list. But we have to ask ourselves, is Jack Stephen somebody who's going to be in the top 22 next year? Is he going to be somebody who starts a dozen games next year? Or are they going to actually buy out his contract between now and 7:30 this evening, Australia time? I don't know. I haven't heard a whole lot about that since the initial indication that they had been talking to him about that, because there's been rumblings that he may be consider retiring, that he may step away from the game. And it would be sad to see him go out that way, because this is somebody who I believe was a 4-time best and fairest with the Saints, and he had a forgettable, unforgettable last year, if you understand what I mean there. It was forgettable, but it was also unforgettable, everything that went on from COVID, from getting stabbed. And again, we still don't know the whole story about that, and we're probably never going to know the whole story. But it's he may not be there. So the Cats may still have something up their sleeve between now and the end of the trade deadline. But would it shock you if they just simply walked away from this GWS deal and said, Jeremy, we'd love to get you down here. We think that you would it would be as close to a guarantee of us getting into the finals, maybe a top 4 finish, and hopefully a grand final opportunity if you were here. But maybe we're not going to bet the farm on you, or we're not going to give away the farm, because they've got holes to fill. And as I was saying, and I kind of talked around it here, I didn't get back to it. As we were getting to the the beginning of this live stream. I did see a story that broke, and this was I think Shane Day in the Geelong Mayhem site on Facebook posted that the league has finalized or made a decision on list sizes for next year, and it's not a huge number, or I'm sure I should say a huge difference. They've stated that the minimum list size is going to be 37, and the maximum list size is going to be 44. So basically, 2 spots have been cut from each club in terms of like the maximum that they could carry. So, we'll see if that, if how that's going to impact people. But again, it's going to cost a couple players from each club their jobs. And, that's something that the players union has to agree to, because you're talking, 30 players who are going to be unemployed because of this rule change. So we'll see if, what's going to happen with regards to who's going to be on list and who's not, because it's fascinating to watch this happen. Like I said, this is really my first year paying close attention to what was going on during the trade period. I've been listening to a lot of the trade period radio and that type of thing, reading a lot of articles. It's been interesting because I'm a teacher by trade, and I'm sitting down here working on some schoolwork tonight as well. And one of my duties during the course of my school day is I have to supervise the cafeteria. So for a half an hour each day. Now I don't generally eat in the cafeteria. I'll bring my lunch with me. In fact, I haven't purchased anything in the school cafeteria in well over a decade. But I'll go down there with my computer, and I'll have my phone with me as well. And I'll open up a podcast app that I use. The one I use here in the States, and I'm sure you can get it anywhere else, is one called Stitcher. And I've just gotten accustomed to using it. It's got some very positive aspects of it. It's got probably some drawbacks, but I'm comfortable with it. I've been more comfortable with it than, say, using Apple Podcasts or Spotify or things of that nature. I've got a level of comfort with it, so it's the one I use. So I'll pop on, Real Footy or the Fox Footy podcast or something of that nature, and I'll have it. I'm not using my earbuds because I need to kind of be able to hear what's going on around in the cafeteria. And it's interesting watching kids who don't know that I'm a footy fan, and it's hard to believe that none of the kids there don't know that, because it's pretty much all I talk about. And I've got 6 or 8 footy bumper stickers on my car, or stickers on the window of my car. They'll stop and they'll listen for a second and try to figure out, what are these people talking about? And I'll explain it to them a little bit, and they'll go on their way, and they'll go, hey, there's that weird teacher that likes Australian football. The one thing I was really surprised by, and I went back and I looked, and I traded notes with online today with Rick Shabani, who I've interviewed in previous episodes. He was on the finals preview as well. And we got talking about how there was a one club, and I had already earmarked them for a spot in the finals next year. I had already said that they were going to leap from the bottom 10 into the top 8 next year. But they've done really nothing. They've made one move, and it was trading out Jesse Hogan to GWS and bringing in pick 55. Fremantle has not done a whole lot to add to their list during this trade period. Now, maybe there's something that's going to happen here at the end that we're going to be shocked by. But this is a club that defensively was terrific last year, but they really struggled scoring points. And I was just under the assumption that they were going to go ahead and try to figure out a way to bring some more offense to their list. And they've certainly not done that in this situation here, because they've not added anybody, to the best I can tell. I mean, I've scrolled through all of the deals that have been made, and there's nothing that's happened there. They've not made deal one other than sending Jesse Hogan out. They picked up a 3rd-round pick, so that's going to help hopefully bring in somebody that will be able to help them out. But is that youngster going to be able to help put an extra 8 to 10, 12 points a game on the scoreboard for them? Because if they can score another dozen points a game, they're probably going to find their way into the finals. So it's and something that I guess, and I've alluded to this, and I've thought about it, and I've mentioned it in I think in other episodes way back when I began the podcast. But do we find ourselves with the teams that are in Perth, since the AFL tends to be very Victoria centric? And welcome, Let's Ride 34 to the podcast. Thanks for hopping in there. Glad to see you here. But when the teams from West Australia add players from Victoria or from New South Wales, do they have a hard time hanging on to them? And again, is homesickness that big of a thing? Are they gonna struggle to find players that want to head to Perth to play? Tim Kelly was one, but Tim Kelly had said, I want to play for the Eagles, so he's playing for the Eagles. But it's something I wonder about. Does it put Fremantle at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of recruiting players during the trade period, because they don't have the allure of being the hometown team for so many players that come out of Victoria. Now I know that there are comps all over the country, and I'm actually going to start doing a little bit of a history of some of the major competitions throughout the different states around Australia, because I'm looking for ways to help learn a little bit more about the game myself besides just the AFL. So I've had somebody who's been sharing a lot of things about the Sandful with me, and I want to dig into the waffle, that type of thing as well, and learn the history of those competitions. But I guess thinking about this, maybe this does put Fremantle at a bit of a disadvantage, because players seem to want to go to, well, many, not all, but players seem to want to go to a Victorian club if they're playing at Gold Coast, or they're playing in Brisbane, or maybe if they're from the Melbourne area and they've been drafted by Port, or they've been drafted by Adelaide, that they want to head home down the road. They want to play their 4 or 5 years of their initial contract, and then they want to get traded back to their hometown. Maybe they've met somebody, they want to settle down, have a family there, and be around their extended family, parents, aunts and uncles, grandparents, that type of thing. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. I just find it fascinating, because it's something that you don't see in professional sports here in the United States. There's not a significant. I can't recall the last time that an NFL player has said, well, I want to go, I'm playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, but I'm from California, I want to be traded to the Rams. I don't think I've ever heard a player say they want to go to a specific team. Now, in Major League Baseball, it happens occasionally, because the players will have contracts that allow them to actually have what are called no trade clauses, where if they've reached a certain point in time in their career, if they played long enough, then they can actually have the right to refuse a trade to a club. So, maybe somebody does not want to go play for the New York Yankees, or they don't want to go play for the Dodgers, or they don't want to play for the Cleveland Indians, because, hey, my Indians don't need an outfielder at all, ever, seemingly. But is this homesickness something that happens a lot with footy players. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I have really never noticed that much in other sports. Now, like I said, it happens in baseball a little bit. So we've got 3 major deals that are probably still going to happen before the end of the trade deadline. And I've already been on here a lot longer than I thought I would be today, actually. But you've got Josh Dunkley, you've got Adam Treloar, and of course, as I mentioned, you got Jeremy Cameron, and then you've also got Jaden Stevenson out there, who seems to be on his way out from Collingwood. Also, Stevenson, Treloar, both heading out. Are these deals going to get done? Because they've basically been told by the club, hey, you know what, we're pretty much done with you. We are going to go in a different direction. In fact, we'll go ahead and pay some teams some money to take you away. So, we'll have to see. Let's see what happens here. But like I said, this is going to be an interesting 10 hours or so. Now I'm going to be sleeping through the bulk of that because it's 7:40 in the evening here. So when I wrap this up in a few minutes, I'm going to empty my dishwasher, quite frankly. But I'm going to get some schoolwork graded, and I'm going to do a little bit more digging into my next episode that I'm going to be putting out. But I'm going to upload this one as a regular episode here shortly as well. But like I said, this was my first foray, my first experiment in doing a live episode. I like the comfort of being a little bit more scripted than I am tonight. I started working on a script and I thought to myself, sorry, I had to cough there for just a moment. I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try doing this as a live episode and see if, anybody engages and comes on. And I appreciate, appreciate you swinging by here to listen. Hopefully more folks will tune into this after I publish it as a regular episode. But I think we're going to see, a furious sprint to the deadline. Do I think Jeremy Cameron ends up with the Cats? Yeah, I think ultimately he does end up there. Are they going to have to give away all 3 first-round picks? I hope not. If they do, I hope they get back a second rounder this year and maybe a third rounder next year from GWS to help balance it out a little bit, because the Cats have got to realize that they need to start bringing in some other young players. I know they've got some decent youngsters that are there, but they've just swapped out a couple youngsters who were at that point in their career that they were ready to start filling in some holes there with Fogarty and with Cockatoo. And again, they've got older players in front of them, so it's time to, as I think they talk, the Bill Belichick that coaches the Patriots, how he likes to churn the bottom of the roster, if you will, finding younger players that can be special teams players with the New England Patriots and that sort of thing. Of course, the Patriots are not very good this year. That Tom Brady is no longer there, so we shall see. We shall see what happens with this. But it's been an interesting week and a half here. Now let's ride. Before I wrap up, did you have any kind of a question you would want to ask? I think you could actually type that in the input bar down at the bottom there. I think you can put it right down here. There we go. Okay, my response showed up there, so we'll see how this goes. And okay, but like I said, we'll see what happens with this. And I have looked at using the live format here, but I'm not real comfortable quite yet with the whole flying by the seat of your pants. I like to have a little bit more of a something mapped out in terms of what I'm going to be saying. So I think if I do this again, I'll still have a little bit more structure here. Now, don't forget, those of you who are listening to this after I have released this, remember you can reach me at Yank_on Twitter, or at a Yank on the Footy on Facebook and on Instagram. And you can reach me by email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. I will let you know also that I'm very, very close to opening up my merch store. It's going to be on Redbubble, and I'll have information for that hopefully in the next week or so. I've begun to actually put some of the items online, sizing things up, figuring out what types of things that I want to offer. And one of the neat things about this company, again, it's the holiday season coming up pretty soon. So, if one of your loved ones is listening to the podcast, I'm sure they would love to have a Yank on the Footy t-shirt or a sticker for their car or their laptop, or buy yourself a gift, quite frankly. But there are some designs that one of my students has created for me. And I had her as a student last year, but she's been in my Model UN group for 6 years. Terrific young lady, great family. And I'm gonna go back to her probably for some more ideas as we go along here. She's a terrific graphic artist. So as I wrap this up, ladies and gents, again, I truly appreciate you listening. This was a whole new way of going about doing this. So I don't know how much you will enjoy this. Please let me know in the comments on the Podbean app. Let me know what you think. Should I do more live podcasts? Sure, I know I need to brush up and get a little bit better going live here. I talk for a living. Besides, I do this for fun, but I'm a school teacher, so I talk a lot. I work as a public address announcer, announcing football and soccer games here in the state, so I talk a lot there as well. But I kind of like the idea of doing this, and once I figure out the ins and outs of how I can go about actually bringing people on board, it looks as though I can actually bring people on and have them kind of calling in through their computer or through their phone and discussing things with them online. I need to figure out how to do that, but I wanted to go through the process of getting this information out there before the evening got away from me tonight. So again, let's ride 34. Thanks for tuning in for the live version of this. Those of you who are tuning in, I recorded this beginning at about 7:15 on Wednesday evening here in Sandusky, Ohio. I'm going to release this as soon as I figure out how to get it uploaded as a regular episode. But hey, thanks for tuning in, and we'll do this again very soon. Don't forget. Thanks. See, the text does work. All right. Don't forget that you can, like I said, you can find this podcast on your favorite podcast hosting site, and hopefully you'll share a link with your friends. And may your dribble kick never hit the post. I'll catch you later. Insert music that I don't have here right now. Have a great evening.